What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Underdogs Podcast. We're on episode number 16 now with another special guest, as always. My name is Jordan Daly. With me, we got NBA vets Mike Taylor, Craig Smith. Say what's up, guys.
What up? What up? What up?
Craig,
hit that subscribe button below, man. Hit that subscribe button. But today we got a special guest, one of my former teammates, a true vet. One of the few to go from the CBA to the NBA, have an 11-year career. He's played with the Utah Jazz, the LA Clippers, the Orlando Magic, the Minnesota Timberwolves, where he averaged a career high in 14 points in the 2002-2003 season. And he also played for the Golden State Warriors. My guy, Troy Hudson. What's up, man?
Man, nothing much, man. Just chilling, living the life. That's about it. It's ironic that this is the 16th episode. You know that's my number. So
exactly, man.
Works for a reason.
It's gonna be special.
It is. Let's go.
All right, let's get right into it.
Let's talk about your upbringing. You know what I'm saying? How it was growing up in Illinois. How far was it from Chicago and everything? Just kind of let us know, like, you know, your upbringing geographically, where you from, and how it was in your household.
So I get asked that question all the time because when I was, growing up, whenever I would go to camps, different camps across the country, first thing I say, like, where you from? I say, I'm from Illinois. They say Chi-Town. I'm like, no, not Chi-Town. I'm like 5 hours south of Chicago. So I'm actually closer to St. Louis. I'm like an hour from St. Louis. I'm like an hour and a half from Tennessee, an hour from Indiana. So I'm like at the if you look at the map and look at the Illinois, it's real long. It's not that wide, it's real long. I'm at the tip, like way down at the bottom, like rural, Midwest country, right there, Indiana, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee. Like, so I'm way down there. So, growing up down there is a lot different than, growing up in the city of Chicago. You know what I'm saying? That's the city. You know what I'm saying? That's like LA. That's like growing up in New York City. Like, I was rural America, like farmland, small town America. And that's kind of how I grew up in my upbringing. Small towns now, you got, it's a lot of roughness to it because it's so small and ain't much to do. So in our city right now, sad to say there's a lot of, violence, senseless violence and stuff like that, which is happening all across America. But, in small towns like that, it's even sadder because everybody's like cousins, so everybody know each other. But when I grew up, it was more of a sense of family, community, everybody looking out for you. You know what I'm saying? Like me personally, I grew up, right during the crack epidemic, you know what I'm saying? Pandemic. So, but the guys that was doing that stuff in my era, like if you was a hooper or you was musically inclined or book smart or whatever it was, like they wouldn't let you, get close to that stuff. You know what I'm saying? They kind of looked out for you. They took care of you. They made sure you get to camp. They made sure you had gym shoes. So it was just like a different era for me growing up. I'm 46 now, so I grew up like with the old heads back in the, the 80s and in the early 90s. But, Carbondale, Illinois is one of those towns, man. It was a hoop town. A lot of legends come out of there that play basketball. I'm like probably one of the biggest that got that opportunity to go to the league. But I never forget those that came before me because I stood on their shoulders. You know what I'm saying? Like they paved the way in which allowed me to finally start getting notoriety. Like my sophomore year in high school, I started going to some camps and stuff like that in Chicago, Illinois. Played AAU with Larry Butler, the Chicago Warriors. After me, that program produced people like Darius Miles, Quentin Richardson. A lot of those guys that came up in the early 2000s came out of the Warriors organization with Larry Butler. So big shout out to Larry Butler for putting on for the whole state of Illinois. So, but Illinois is a small town, man. Humble beginnings. Always had to, get it out the mud. You know what I'm saying? So we always had that underdog approach coming from a small town like Carbondale because everybody only knew Chicago. Like when it came to basketball, it was like Chicago. So whenever we had an opportunity to go up against some of those great talents in Chicago, we came with the underdog mentality. So I just carried that on my shoulders all the way through my career.
No, I definitely feel that coming from the Midwest myself. I'm in Wisconsin, Milwaukee.
Okay, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, so we're a small town, and just like you were saying, like, man, there's so much senseless violence going on, and just, man, stealing cars, like this what the kids into right now. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely feel you on that part. And how was it? What was you raised with your mom and your dad, your brothers and your sisters? Kind of give us a deeper dive into, you know what I'm saying, your household.
Well, I was raised, so
were you able to hear me?
I'm the oldest of all the grandkids, right? So my grandmother had other siblings that was younger than my mom. So I was basically raised by a village. My mom was always there, but I mostly stayed at my grandmother's house. You know what I'm saying? Because that's where all the traffic was. That's where all the people was. You know, Big Mama took care of everything, everybody. So even though I stayed back and forth with my mother and my grandmother, same town, so it depended on where I want to be for a week or so, right? So I had, a younger brother, a younger sister that was in the household with me, but then I had three other brothers that was with my dad. My dad and my mom, they got together in high school, 16-year-old stuff, right? So she actually moved to a different state in a different town, but he went to the service. So he was always in my life, but they wasn't married, nothing like that, just high school lover stuff. So, but he was always in my life. His family side always in my life. So I had a chance to have experience from both sides of my dad and my mother's side. And like I said, he was military, so I think from a distance, I had some type of discipline. You know what I'm saying? A lot of discipline that, because when you hear your dad's a sergeant in the Army, you 100, you like, okay, I'm going to have some discipline about myself, or, it's going to be trouble when he see me. So, but he was always like stationed in Germany, Korea. So he did most of my younger years, he was mostly out of the country. Of course, when he came home, he would come see me, spend a couple of weeks with me and stuff like that. But, we've always had a great relationship. From what I hear, I got all my skills from him. You know what I'm saying? They say he was a dog like that on the baseball field and basketball court. So always pay homage because, without him, I wouldn't be me. So I ain't never had any, bitter feelings, nothing like that, because I knew he had to go do what he had to do. And that's, build a career in the Army. But like I said, had no regrets growing up. I grew up in public housing, which to me is a reason why I was as hungry as I was. You know what I'm saying? I really didn't know we didn't have much. You know what I'm saying? Back in them days, you don't know you didn't have much because you didn't see nothing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we was happy with what we had. I had always been grateful of opportunities and the things that we had. I remember back in the days, me and my wife were just talking about it. Kids nowadays get $100 here and there for birthdays. You know what I'm saying? Like, before you know it, they got like $1,000 once their uncles and aunties and friends had the money. We used to get a dollar food stamp to go bust it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, go spend 10 cents, bring that 90 cent change back. We was happy with that. Yeah. So that's how I grew up, just appreciating everything that I ever had a chance to attain.
No, that's amazing, bro. Like, that's the true definition of the underdog. And we gonna start it off, kick it off just like that. Like, that's what I be wanting to get into that background and that upbringing. And there's so many similarities, you know what I'm saying, that I had in my upbringing. And I just relate to it so much, bro. So again, let's hop into it. A pleasure to have you on.
So,
T-Hud, when you say sergeant, it made me think of Major Payne. Like,
and from my brother's perspective, it was Major Payne. So I didn't live in the house with him, so whenever he saw me, he had to be kind of nice because he had
very cool.
You know what I'm saying? But my brother got it. You know what I'm saying? My brother to this day still make his bed like right out. You know what I'm saying? Get out, make his bed, police his jeans. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad I didn't get none of that.
And the mentality though, man, like because I know it's just like, all right, I gotta be sharp and I gotta be on point because I already know what he be on.
Exactly, for sure. Yeah.
So,
And speaking of Carbondale too, got to shout out Justin Detman in the Big Three. I believe he's from Carbondale as well.
Oh yeah, that's the little homie.
yeah.
He was he actually was in school with my little cousins. So,
Oh,
okay.
Yes, I used to see him. I used to see him all the time, running around there with a basketball. We crossed each other paths finally in the CBA when I tried to make my comeback in 2012. I had to scrape him a couple times. You know what I'm saying? Because look, I wouldn't practice the whole week because I knew I had. You know what I'm saying? Because it's always those. Being from Carbondale, we like two of the best guards ever come from there, but we're in two different generations. So it's always that comparison, and people saying who's the best seven between Justin and Troy. So I had to make sure I was well rested before I played him. I'm like, look, he may give it to me because I got him by almost 15, 16 years. But guess what? People gonna be like, yeah, Huddy still got it though.
I could dig it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh man,
he's killing it in the Big Three now. Just got promoted to co-captain of Tri-State. So we'll see how he does this year.
Now. Hey, you killer.
Nah, he got game.
With that one leg, you know what I'm saying? You gotta watch out for that one leg.
All right, so we'll keep moving. We'll move on to your college career. How did you come to pick? I believe you started at University of Missouri. How did that come into fruition for you? How did you pick that school? Kind of walk us through those steps.
And it was crazy because I'm gonna be honest. So my dream school, if they would have just said hi, Troy, I would have signed. And that was Kentucky, right? Because that was Rick Pitino. I was a 3-point shooter. They used to just let it fly from three. My second school would have been Arkansas, same type of style of play. They used to pressure with Nolan Richardson and those guys. But then my third school just came out the blue, which was Missouri. My senior year, Kim Anderson, who was the assistant coach there at the time, showed up to every one of my high school games, every one. So I would always see him. And then, growing up, I would watch Anthony Peeler, Doug Smith, because we could, we're like 3.5 hours from Columbia, Missouri. So we got them on TV. We watched their local games, their home games. I had a chance to see every one of their home games. So I was a big Anthony Peeler and Doug Smith fan. So that played a role too, but definitely, when you get an assistant coach that's coming to your game, I was heavily recruited, but he was the only guy there every game, and he made sure he let me see him. You know what I'm saying? So, it was kind of an easy pick. After Kentucky didn't recruit me and Arkansas didn't recruit me, it was easy for me to say, I'm going to go to Missouri.
Hold on. Going back real quick, I know we was talking about college. What was your high school career like?
Being that I was first team All-State my senior year. Honorable mention my sophomore and junior year. But if you first team All-State in Illinois, that's a big thing. You know what I'm saying? Because they had, especially at that time, they had big ballers coming out of there. So we went to the state championship game. We lost to Peoria Manual by 1 point at the buzzer, that would have been our only high school state championship. We finished second a few times. Justin finished second as well, but that would have been our only championship. But had a great high school career. I'm the all-time leading scorer at my high school. I played the most years in the NBA. So my high school career was amazing. I really enjoyed it. Still happy that I'm all-time. I'm waiting for somebody to pass me up. You always want somebody to have an opportunity to beat your record. So I'm waiting till that time come. I think there's a couple guys that's coming down the pipeline that could probably take over that.
So after your time at Missouri, you transfer to, which I'm guessing by your background was your favorite of the two schools, Southern Illinois. Why did you choose to transfer there? Walk us through that process, what the transfer was like.
Well, when I got to Missouri, they recruited me, like I said, heavily. They was at every one of my basketball games, right there. So, and in high school, and Craig will tell you this right now, I'm shooting first. I'm a shoot first guard. So in high school, I didn't play point guard until I got to the NBA. So I was a two guard I'm talking about traditional two guard, running off screens, Steph Curry just launching it from anywhere. That was my style my whole life until I got to the NBA. So they recruited me, and when I got to Missouri, they tried to turn me into a traditional point guard, like a Jock Vaughn type. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Jock. You know what I'm saying? That we was together with in Utah, great point guard, but that wasn't my style. And I still love Missouri. I love Norm Stewart. I love everything about it. But I'm like, I'm trying to be somebody I'm not, and they're not. They wasn't trying to massage me into that. It was just straight be that. You know what I'm saying? Not say, okay, Troy, we're gonna help and continue to nurture you and grow you into a point guard. No, the first day I come down, do I was hitting too. And they were like, no, that's not how we play. I'm like, but that's a bucket. You know what I'm saying? So I couldn't understand. I just could. It was just hard for me. So I was like, you know what? This ain't gonna be the place for me because first of all, I want to be happy. Second of all, y'all shouldn't have recruited me knowing who I was as a player. Like y'all should have been like, look, when you come here, all that jacking, you can't do that. Then I would have known, okay, I'm not gonna go there. Which is one reason why I like the portal. Now, I do like the portal because it puts accountability on college coaches that they can't just come in and tell you anything you want to hear just to get you there and trap you. So when I went back home, so after I transferred, the NCAA, which a lot of people don't know, in your letter of intent, in fine print, it says that you have to complete a full year before you transfer, or you forfeit 2.5 years. That half year plus 2 more.
Wow.
So I hadn't played for 3 games. I was down to only a year and a half to play college basketball. So I actually took the NCAA to court, and I took them to court and I actually won. I won that case, and they allowed me to get 2.5 years rather than a year and a half. And so when I got to SIU, they scheduled, because I was supposed to miss the first whole half of the year, but they only scheduled, so what they did was they only scheduled 4 games in that first half of the year. So I really played a whole year. And I asked the coach, Rich Herring, RIP, rest in peace to Rich Herring. I asked him right at the top, how many times can I shoot? And he said, as many as you want. I was like, okay, cool. And I was at home. So I was back home as well. So, I'm like, I know he ain't gonna lie to me. I'm back at the crib. I'm probably their biggest recruiter. This man came to lie to me, you know what I'm saying? So I can shoot as much as I want. So, hey, that's where I went.
Getting that green light must be huge too, just that vote of confidence from your coach.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you see, he was he liked scores because he coached Doug Collins in high school. The legendary Doug Collins, who was 76. He coached him in high school, so he was familiar with, gun and guards. Not as small as me, but he knew that I could score the ball. They watched me. They recruited me in high school. Of course, it's in Carbondale. They never felt like they had a chance to get me, but they did show their face. I gave them a home visit. I went on a school visit, which was unofficial because I'm right there at home with them. But I did give them an opportunity just out of respect of it being the hometown.
And then coming to your senior year, did you decide to sit out? What was the kind of the process there?
My senior year in college?
Yes.
So I didn't go. I didn't use those 2.5 years. I still left after a year and a half. So I entered the draft in my junior year. And the reason why I did that was I was all conference both my years at SIU, but each year that I played there, we wasn't getting any better talent-wise, but that wasn't bothering me. It's just each year I played there, they started putting more people on me. By the time my second year there, I was getting triple team, you know what I'm saying? And I'm still getting the dub. I'm like, man, by the time my 4th year, they're going to be having the whole squad on me. So I'm like, it ain't much more I can do here. I averaged 22 both years. So by the time my junior year, I said, you know what? I'm just going to enter the draft. And when I did enter the draft, all the scouts, everybody was like, he has no chance at playing in the NBA. It was like he had no chance ever playing. They was like, he might not even survive overseas. This was like the head scout in the NBA those are his words written on paper about me.
That's a motivation right there.
I was an undersized shooting guard. No one had ever saw me dribble. No one even thought I could dribble the basketball because I just came off picks. I just would come off picks and catch and shoot.
Being that he said that, one of the top execs, let's talk about your draft night experience and how that affected you going forward.
And that's crazy because draft night, I was on a plane on my way to minicamp in Boston. So I didn't even see the draft. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't even thinking about the draft because, me and my agent, we knew, wasn't no interest really. So I had a great agent in Bill Neff who had great relationships and people really trusted his judgment of like undrafted, out the mud players. Mm-hmm. So I was able to get a mini camp workout with the Boston Celtics, which Rick Pitino was there at the time. And when I got there, there was the day right after the draft. How the mini camp thing go. So I'm there with their draft picks. Some of the other guys are trying to make it, and I performed very well. And that's part of creating your resume. Because my agent he's really good. He's still in the game to this day. He has Vincent from Miami right now.
Okay.
He's in the game today, but he understood how to build a resume. And he was like, look, we had confidence in you. You're just going to have to go and you have to perform well at all these camps we send you to because word of mouth gets around. And people will start telling other execs and stuff that, no, this kid is good. We just didn't have room for him. This kid is good. We just didn't have room for him. Just to be a professional, go in, do your work, show up early, leave late. I had a real good team at that time that really kind of taught me how to be a pro and what they was going to be looking for and how to handle it.
What were some of the vets that helped you in that process during that training camp?
In Boston?
In Boston.
So this was the first mini camp, so it really wasn't no.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It was
the mini camp.
Rookies, like kind of journeymen that's trying to make the real training. You know what I'm saying? So it really wasn't many. Everybody else was like, wasn't nobody really happy because everybody else like, I'm trying to get it. You know what I'm saying? So you had to come in. You was kind of like blind at that point, and even going in, like I told you, even going in then, they put me at the point. But me playing the point is different from somebody playing the point that's been playing the point. So like, and I tell people this all the time. They're like, well, you got a nice handle. Why was you not a point? I said, because when somebody pressures a real point guard, they can still still make the pass. I was a killer. You pressured me, I'm getting to the bucket, or I'm about to, you know what I'm saying? I ain't got the patience. I was just a killer instinct. Like, if you pressure me, my mindset is to attack back, not to think about the play. You know what I'm saying? So that's when I had to learn how to do that. So my first camps, I was still jacking. You know what I'm saying? And they would tell my agent, like, this dude can score. He has a great handle. He's lightning quick, but he has to learn how to facilitate and be a point guard. So it took me a while, but I finally got it. Even my Clipper days, I still wasn't a point guard. You know what I'm saying? My Orlando days, I wasn't a point guard until my second year. And then, of course, Flip is the one that really had that much patience with me to say, you know what, do your thing and we'll keep helping you.
So after this Celtics minicamp, what happens after? Like, was there a few teams that was thinking about bringing you to like the veterans camp, or like, how did that process go after that?
Well, after that camp, you go to another camp. I think I went to Milwaukee after that.
Okay.
And then after I left Milwaukee, I went to Trailblazers. After I went to the Trailblazers, I went to Utah's camp. And you always got to have people in your corner. Like this basketball thing, like I tell people all the time, there's people out here that was better than me or had as much talent, but they didn't have just that one person that liked them a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you just need that one person that got your back in those organizations. And a guy by the name of David Fredman, who was a scout for the Utah Jazz, who happened to be from Southern Illinois, like 11 miles from Marion. So he had ties to like some coaches in that area. Like he's a homeboy, you know what I'm saying? And he had heard about me, watched me all the way through high school and stuff like that. And he was telling the Jazz execs, like, look, give this kid a chance. Like, he can play. So I had that one person in Utah that was really on my side.
Yeah.
I went in, I proved them right. And that was the team that said, you know what? We're going to give you an invite to camp. And Jerry Sloan's from Southern Illinois, too. So he was from Plainsboro, which was like 40 miles from Carbondale. Yeah. So he had, he kind of knew about me as well. And what's so crazy about that situation is Utah knew that I wasn't going to stay there the whole year or whatever. But in training camp, during the summer league in Salt Lake City, he would put me in. I didn't start because Josh Bourne was their draft pick. So he'll start. He'll play most of the minutes. I would back him up. But when I came in the game, we didn't run Utah stuff. He would just run isolations for me. And, you know what I'm saying? And he never did that for anybody, you know what I'm saying? But he would run isolations for me because he's like, look, you probably ain't going to be on this team, but I want everybody else to see how good you are. So, they really looked out for me in Utah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That was dope.
So after going undrafted, you ended up playing for a minor league team in Yakima, Washington called the Sun Kings. How did that kind of come about for you and, walk us through that process?
Well, that same summer, you still have they had a CBA draft. And I went number 2 to Yakima. And that was after my performances in the summer league that they saw how good I was. So they picked me number 2. And I made Utah's opening day roster and played 25 games with them that season because John Stockton had to get surgery and was out of games for the first time in his career. So they were actually going to cut me. Utah was going to cut me and keep a guy who was a second-round pick by the name of Nate. I forget his last name. He went to Oklahoma State, a 2-guard. John Stockton went into the front office and said, "You're not cutting Hudson." You know what I'm saying? Because he saw my hunger. Like, I was the first person to practice, the last in the league. You know what I'm saying? I'm showing them that in Stockton, I used to compete. So he was like, "You're not going to cut him. That's who we want. I want him to stick around." So when I stuck around for 25 games, and then Stock came back, and then they had to release me. When they released me, I went. Yakima Sun Kings had my draft rights. So I went there 3 days later, and we went on like a 13-day road trip. And it's crazy because my first game with them, I came off the bench. We were down like 25 in the first quarter. I came off the bench, scored 24 in the second quarter. Didn't play, and that was against like Jeff McGinnis was on that team, Doug Smith was on that team. They had a whip on that team. It was the Quad City Thunder. I came in, scored 24, 25 in the quarter, right? I didn't play the rest of the game. I didn't play the rest of the next 3 games. The coach did not put me in the game. And I'm talking to my agent. I'm like, man, what's going on? And so I figured it out that at that time, even coaches was trying to get call-ups. So he was like, hold on. This dude come out here and get 25 in the quarter. We going to lose him soon, which means we're probably not going to get many victories, which means I'm not going to get called up myself. So I actually left that team after like 2 weeks. And I sat at home for almost – they would not trade me or nothing. So I sat at home for like 2.5 months. He ended up getting fired. And Sioux Falls' assistant coach went to where he was at, and he wanted to bring in a point guard with him from Sioux Falls named Randy Woods, who was a dope point guard. And so they traded me and Randy Woods, and I was able to go to Sioux Falls and continue to play again.
And just to clarify, the CBA is what the G League eventually turned into, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, it is, but the CBA wasn't really supported by the NBA at that time, but you did get call-ups and stuff, but it wasn't part of the NBA organization, and it wasn't as sweet as it is now. You know what I'm saying? Like, we stayed in motels, $20 a day for per diem. You know what I'm saying? Like, we traveled on buses. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was real muddy. You know what I'm saying? Like, in the CBA, but it was a farm system. You know what I'm saying? Like guys got called up from the CBA to the NBA. It was the closest thing to what the G League is doing now.
Okay.
I was considered like a scoring guard, and they was like, "Oh, can he be a point guard? Can he come down and run the team and all of that stuff?" Right? And I'm in the NBA in 2007, 2008. This is 10 years ahead of time, and you this hybrid scoring guard. Now in the NBA, this is the point guards. This is the style of NBA. It's for the guard to come down and shot first. That's accepted. So how is your mentality going through those phases, right? So it's not accepted, your style of play. I'm saying, like, what's that mentality to still maintain, keep your game, because that's what really got you there.
I think so. My first year with Orlando Magic, me and Doc Rivers bumped heads like crazy because that was my style of play. And it got to the point where I was shooting air balls from the free throw line, you know what I'm saying? Wide open 3 air balls, you know what I'm saying? I was known as a shooter. So my first year with Orlando was like stressful as heck. Doc Rivers actually pulled me aside my second year because Grant Hill got hurt. He was hurt off and on in Orlando the whole time he was there, but he actually got surgery right at the beginning of the season, my second year. And so Doc Rivers pulls me aside and he says, "Look, Troy, I'm going to take last year. That's my fault. That the whole year is my fault." He said, "Look, if you had the opportunity that Iverson had and just coming down gunning, you could probably be just as good as him." He said, "But we didn't need that last year because we had T-Mac and we had Grant Hill. Those were our scorers." He said, "But I know you can score." He said, "Well, now we don't have Grant Hill, so do what you want to do." So that year kind of allowed me to kind of be the type of guard that I had always been, come down, score when I want to score. And that actually relaxed me a little bit. And I became a better point guard because I had the freedom to learn on the fly rather than them forcing me to learn. And I finished like number 2 or 3 in the 6-man award, most improved. And that was kind of like my coming out party before I got to Minnesota. When I got to Minnesota, as Craig will tell you, like, that's a point guard system. You know, although KG was the man, you got to get him the ball, but it was still pick and roll heavy, coming off pick and rolls. If you got your shot, you could take your shot. So that was another system that allowed me to be wide open as a scoring point guard as well. But it was tough. It was tough for a while because I got cut from a few teams because the style that I played. But I had got to the point where I was like, look, you just go cut me. I got to do what I do. And hopefully you'll love me. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully you'll start to love me. If not, then I just can't, because I'm not going to be somebody else because I won't be successful. So I stuck with what I was doing, and it finally paid off for me.
So those years that you were with the Magic, you got to play with, Grant Hill, Trace McGrady, Patrick Ewing. What did you learn from those vets, and like how essential is it to have like good vets to kind of follow?
I mean, great vets, man. Patrick Ewing is still to this day one of my good friends. Like, he was like one of the coolest guys. Him and Horace Grant, me and Horace still talk. Like, those were vets because they were like on their way out. I think Pat probably played one more year and he was done. Same with Horace. Horace probably played 2 more years. I think he went to the Lakers. But I learned a lot from so me and Pat was coming on. This was the first time he had came off the bench. So I was in the rotation with Big Pat, and it got to the point where Doc was telling me not to pass the ball to him. Like, it was that he had got that bad because his knees were getting bad. Like, he had no lift. But I was still passing the ball because I'm like, this Pat Ewing, if he down there like this, I'm giving Big Pat the ball, right? So I'd give him the ball, and on the way down court, he'd be like, "Hey, T-Hud, thank you, man. Thank you." I mean, you know what I'm saying? So that to me was like, man, that man grateful. He a legend. So you learn from stuff like that as well, and you learn to be, grateful for the opportunities you have, no matter, what level you're on. You still have, to be grateful because it can be gone any day. In the same way, Horace taught me the game, the business side of the game. whenever I would be in a funk, Horace would pull me to the side. We'll go out somewhere to a restaurant, get something to eat, have a few drinks, and he'd be like, look, man, it ain't about what you're doing. They're making a business play too. Like they're telling you certain stuff and they want you to get a little frustrated so you can calm down because you're about to get that bag. You know what I'm saying? And he was telling me certain stuff like that. He was like, so don't let them get under your skin because that's a business play. You know what I'm saying? They love you to death. They don't want to lose you because they're not going to be able to pay you next year. He said, so keep doing your thing. So he was giving me little tips like that. So to have vets that giving you tips like that, that's very important because he could have been worried about, you still got some vets that's on their way out and they're so selfish that they're still just thinking about themselves and not pointing into the ones that's, coming behind them.
Then you got to be Craig's vet later on in Minnesota.
Exactly. Right on.
Now, speaking of Minnesota and finding a home, this is the place where you spent your most years in the NBA. Let's just talk about your, having your best career in Minnesota and then, getting a starting role, getting that opportunity, and then going through different transitions during those 5 years as a player. Let's talk about that as well.
When I first got to Minnesota, you get here, and I was coming to just be a backup to Terrell Brandon. So I was supposed to start like the first few weeks because he had ankle surgery. He was all-star, everything. So coming in, everybody like, damn. I mean, we know this kid. Came off the bench last year for Orlando. He averaged 10. He was solid, but is he going to be able to fill Terrell's shoes and get us to the playoffs if Terrell can't play, right? So about a month and a half to the season, Terrell Brandon retires. And so they're like, oh, so now we stuck with this kid, right? And I remember to this day, when you come in and you have a big figure like KG, and you like, I got to fit in. You know what I'm saying? So I was coming in and I'm coming down and I was doing my traditional point guard stuff. I'm coming down and throwing it in to ticket, coming down, may have a wide open shot, pull it back out, set the play up. Flip came to me after practice and said, who are you? And I'm like, what are you talking? He's like, you not playing your game. And I'm like, being a point guard. He said, no, we need you to play your game. He said, play your game, and if you're doing too much, I'll let you know. And so from that moment, that green light that's when I became like what I'm known as now, like the Laker killer. That's when that clicked on because he like, I'm thinking to myself like, is KG cool with this? Because you must don't know what I'm about to do. Like, you know what I'm saying? You telling me to play my game? Are you sure you want me to play my game? He like, play your game. So at that point, that's when I started coming off screens, shooting threes. You know what I'm saying? Like, because Terrell was mostly a mid-range. When he come off the pick and roll, it was a mid-range pull-up. Yeah. I'm calling the pick way out, and I'm going to shoot the three come. You know what I'm saying? So that's when my game kind of evolved. But I was doing that stuff in high school. But, you get to the pros, it's like, you ain't in high school no more. You ain't the star, so you ain't just about to do that. Yeah. It gave me an opportunity to go back to who I really was.
All right. So I got this question, just basically piggybacking on what you were saying earlier too. Just being this hybrid guard, being this point guard to where, coming down and shooting first was like forbidden as a point guard. This is the era. Like, I was coming up, you know what I'm saying, 06, 07, 08, and they was like, that's horrible. That's bad basketball.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because at the time, it's throw it into the post, wait till it come back. If you get it in 5 seconds left, then you can go do your ISO basketball type of situation. Like, so going through that mentality, you know what I'm saying, and always being this guard and being ahead of your time, because now basketball, everybody's shooting the first available shot.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So how was that mentality back then, you know what I'm saying, that you had to just stay with it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I always tell people I was born 20 years too early. I was hey, style wise and money wise.
No facts.
Hey, but it's crazy because my high school coach let me do that, my college coach let me do that, but I wasn't the point guard, right? I was the two guard, so it was cool. And and then you look at today, the game is kind of it's reversed its roles.
Correct.
And to me, it makes more sense because to me, the big guys like LeBron and Joe, they should be the points because they can see over everything. And your guards are quick, can shoot, should look to score more. And I think there's been small guards in the history of this game that could have averaged more than some of the quote unquote two guards. Like when you look at it, our era, as beautiful as it was, but 70s going up through the 90s, they were so stubborn that they would actually see a 6-foot guard and be like, I know he can average 30. I know it, but I would rather this 6'8" guard average 15. And I'm thinking to myself, like, who in the world would want 15 over 30? I don't care how tall you is, you can get me 40 buckets. Get me the 40. You know what I'm saying? That's why, to me, one of the most amazing players in NBA history is Earl Boykins. He's 5'5", and he gets buckets. I don't care how tall. If you can get me 25, 30, you can be 2 foot tall. Like it didn't make sense to me. Like I've been on many teams in the pros that I knew I could be the 1-2 scorer. If you just say score, Troy, I can score. But it's like, no, you 6 foot, so we need you to do this. And then you get pigeonholed. I think today's game, they've gone away from that, and they're like, look, if you can get buckets, get buckets. You know what I'm saying? If you can get buckets, get buckets. And it's, I think it's more entertaining when you have smaller guys who are, carving up the defense, highlight reels and stuff like that. I think the general public on the business side of it, I think the general public, which is 5'7" to 6'3", that's the general public, right? That's the average, right? The average man is what, 5'10", 5'9", 5'10". So it looked like it's more appeasing to their eyes because they see somebody that looks like them that's doing that, right? So I think the entertainment value, it adds more because that's a normal person doing. They think it's normal until they play against you. Everybody like, hey, you 5, I'll kill you. Okay, cool, let's go out here. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's more realistic. That's why Steph Curry is so popular because kids feel like they feel like I could be Steph Curry. They can
relate.
Yeah,
I can't be LeBron James. He is 6'8", 265. I can't do that, but I can do Steph. I'm closer to Steph than I am closer to LeBron.
Facts.
Makes sense too. Like Celtics, Isaiah Thomas in 2015, he was a hero in the city.
For sure.
And it's a crime that he's not in the NBA.
Man, speak on it.
It's a crime. Like the boy, even when you bring him back, he get buckets.
Bucket
every single time.
And then they say this, he don't play no defense. Don't nobody play defense.
You don't need to, and you can score that many.
40.
My offense is my defense.
It drove me nuts because I am a Celtics fan, right? It drove me nuts when we made that trade for Kyrie after everything Isaiah Thomas did for that team in that city. Like he played the day after his sister passed away and dropped a ton of points. And then they did him so dirty, and I felt so bad about it.
Yeah.
He still ain't been able to recover from that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Still. Jumping back to the Timberwolves, though. On episode 1, Craig told us some good stories about his time with KG and some of his more memorable KG moments. Do you have any KG stories that stand out to you or you kind of specifically remember?
Oh, yeah. First of all, like he's the quietest person in the room. He never uses profanity.
Got him.
I was like, hold on. You're not the same guy?
No, like, but the thing about KG is what people don't understand is like his professionalism and his gratitude to everything he got. Like I'm gonna give you, and I tell this story to everybody. Everybody usually want to hear a basketball story, but there's no need to tell a basketball story because you didn't seen that, right? So I always tell a story of him as a person and the type of person he is. and I believe you probably was on the team at this time, Craig. One time he came in, in the NBA, you got janitors, you got people that get your laundry, everything. You can clip your toenails and leave it on the carpet. People go come clean it up. Yeah. KG, the type of person he came in the locker room one time and people were just throwing stuff around the locker room, and he went nuts because his mindset is just because people will get paid to do this, don't you know what I'm saying? Don't just do this, throwing stuff everywhere, being messy. He started cleaning up himself.
Wow.
So that humility and that gratefulness and that gratitude to everything that he got is the reason why he continues to get the things that he desires. You know what I'm saying? And that's what kids need to understand, because I think that's what's missing in this new generation of athletes and just kids, period, is they don't understand that just because you got things don't mean it can't be taken from you. And you have to be grateful for everything you have, and you have to treat people right. And that's one thing that KG always did and still does, is treat everyone like he never looks at himself like a big him and you a little you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He thinks we the same. We're on the same plane as human beings, and that's how he treats everybody. You know what I'm saying? Until you get on his bad side, then he gonna let you know something about yourself. Outside of that, you know what I'm saying? If you meet him, hey, great guy.
Yeah.
How was it for you? You know what I'm saying? Going through and battling through those processes that test your mental too. You know what I'm saying? Going through those injuries and stuff. Can you kind of, walk us down that path and how was it for you in your career when you was going through those injuries?
Oh man, tough. Like you said, the mental aspect is probably the biggest thing, because I had never been hurt at that level before. All of us had turned ankles all through playing basketball, right? Since you was playing Little League, you can turn your ankle, twist your ankle. So I had those. But then when I actually ruptured my ankle, my mental was, okay, I'm going to get my surgery. I'm going to rehab for these few months. I'm going to be back better than ever, right? So that was my mental. But then when you come back and it's taking you a little longer than you having these setbacks, and then, it's like, man, what's going on? And then especially for me, my superpower was my quickness. Mm-hmm. I can shoot the ball, but the only reason why I'm shooting the ball is because I'm so quick that you have to respect the drive-by. So if you take that quickness from me, unless I'm just wide open on a set shot or something, that was most of my game, my shiftiness. So when you dealing and you're limping on one leg, and I still remember to this day, I was so frustrated that one time I'm in a training room on the table, and we had just played Philadelphia, and I'm guarding AI, and I'm on the training table. And Craig will tell you, he'll tell you how Kevin McHale is. Sometimes he just come in and pick with you, right? So I'm on a training table, and I'm just minding my business. I'm getting my ankle wrapped because I'm about to practice has started, but I'm getting my little treatment. He come in there and talking about, hey brother, got your ass busted last night. You have to stay in front of somebody. And I'm looking at him like, dude, you literally know I'm on one leg, right? And I wasn't supposed to be playing because I'm like literally limping. Right? And I'm looking at him like, and because at first I thought he was joking, because Mac could come in and joke like that sometimes. Yeah. I realized he was serious. And I'm like, dude, like I said, first of all, can't nobody stay in front of AI ass with two legs. I'm on one leg, dude. And I actually just stormed up out of because I was already frustrated. I'm giving it my all. I'm already frustrated. I can't be who I am. And you know what? I just stormed out of practice. Glenn Taylor was there, the owner. Everybody was there. Glenn came up. I'm putting my clothes on in the locker room. Glenn come up there. He's like, Troy, just relax. He said, listen, just go ahead, go home. Just take the rest of the day off. You know what I'm saying? Like, Glenn, he rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but he always been cool with me. Like, he, he's always been good by me. But when it comes to business, sometimes, business things happen. especially when you're dealing on a different level of business. Like me, I've never dealt on that level of business before. So, but he was like, just go home, take the day off, come back tomorrow, clear your head, come back tomorrow, it'll be a better day. But like for 3 years, my last 3 years in Minnesota, I was dealing with that ankle. And even my last year, I was good my last year, but they didn't play me much my last year there because at that point they had drafted Randy Foy, they had brought Marco Yaric in, they had brought Mike James in. We had 19 guards and 2 big. So you know what I'm saying. So I kind of knew it was almost the end for me here. And so when they bought me out of my contract, that's when I went to Golden State. So that summer, and I was excited about Golden State because they had Don Nelson, and that's when they had the Believe team. They had just beat Dallas. So I was in there that next year. And Don Nelson, run and gun. You know how he do.
Yeah, up and down.
I'm about to. So I had got in shape. I'm feeling good. Ankle feeling good. 10 games into the season, tear my labrum in my hip. After I just, but I realized I did that because of overcompensating on my left leg those 3 years, right? Yeah. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm just about to step away from basketball. So that's when I had kind of just made my mind up. I was just so frustrated after fighting so hard to get back on the court. That's why I tip my hat off to Klay Thompson. Kudos for him to, to maintain that sense of just wanting to play after all that he went through over the last 3 years, because I couldn't take it no more. I was like, you know what? I'm just about to take a step back and just relax and get back healthy, which I did. But yeah, those injuries, man, especially when you're used to competing at a high level, and now you can't be yourself, you can't do what you used to do. It's tough. I mean, it's really tough because we got pride out there on the court, and if you can't do what you used to do, you can't talk trash no more. You done. Ain't no more fun in it. You know what I'm saying? So, and I was never the type that just, okay, I'm going to play for this money. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I really enjoyed the game. Of course, you want the bread, but if I'm not happy, I'm not about to sacrifice my happiness just to get a bag.
That's real.
I told y'all Mikhail sound like an 80s wrestler.
I was just about to bring that up too. Same impersonation.
That's the exact one. Hey, brother.
He was cool though. Hey, cause
he was cool, yeah.
As the GM, he was like a butthole, but then when he became the coach, he was the coolest coach in the world. We like, dude, what was this dude sitting in the stand? Like, he was sitting in the stand to be the biggest critic. You get on, when he became our coach, he was like, go at him. You know what I'm saying? He's like, whoa, dude, is this you a different coach than you was a GM.
All right, T-Hud. So this is called Rhinos Vision. And I like to go in the deep perspective of the mind. And I like to describe to the viewers our guests and their favorite plays. Now, since you was a Laker killer, you got to let me know your favorite play against the Lakers and who it was, and describe us like the scenario of it, the type of flow, whether it was a pick and roll or was just a total play that was set up, and kind of just describe in detail how it went down and then how you got that bucket.
Well, coming down the court, I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 seconds left. Flip calls a timeout, and I'm hot. You know what I'm saying? At this point, I'm like fish grease hot. I think I already had 20 in the half, right? And this is going to halftime. So he dropped a play, and he draw it up for me, and it's a flare. And so I come down, I pass it to KG. I forget who comes and set the flare pick, but it might have been Rashaw or Mark Jackson. Whoever it was Shaq's man, because he knew Shaq wasn't going to come out like that, right? But they set the flare. I pass to KG. They set the flare. I fly off the flare. KG throw me a pass. I catch it in one hand. And as soon as I catch it and turn, Shaq was out there. He actually came out there. So I'm leaning back from deep 3, leaning back. I couldn't even see the rim. But I was that hot that at that point, I knew where the rim was at. And I just let it go. fell to the ground, looked around, Shaq. He's so big, I think I had to look around him. Wow, go to halftime. I had 25 at the half. So that's probably my favorite play, you know, in a big moment like that. You know what I'm saying? We need game 2.
Yeah.
And to send us in the half, you know, those type of buckets is immortalizing and going into the half for other teams. So that was a big bucket for me.
Definitely. That's definitely a crushing blow going in the half. You hit it in somebody's face like that.
Did Shaq say anything after? I feel like he's famous for giving some great one-liners after.
No, he didn't say nothing. I think they was all pissed off. If you watch the video, you see Robert, the cameraman kind of gets by me. Robert Ory shoves the cameraman. They run into the locker room because, I mean, we was giving them baskets in that game. So, yeah, they didn't expect that.
25 and a half, though.
Yeah. That's a dope Rhino Vision right there. Like,
that's word. That might be a classic one.
All right, we'll jump into the Give a Dog a Bone segment. It's basically just a bunch of rapid fire questions so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. We'll start off. This is the Underdogs Podcast. We want to know what your favorite dog breed is.
Terrier.
Favorite musical artist.
Prince.
Favorite song.
Adore by Prince.
Favorite shoe.
Favorite shoe. I'm gonna go with the Jordan 1s.
Okay. Favorite city to play in.
LA.
Who is your best dunker of all time?
James Flight White.
Ooh. Okay. I like that one. Shout out to
Okay.
Favorite hobby aside from basketball?
Music. Making music, producing music, listening to music, writing music.
You had your own record label too, right?
Yeah. Hudson Records, yep.
Okay.
Who was the hardest player to guard?
AI.
Who was the best defender versus you?
What's his name, man? Watson. What's Watson's name? Used to coach Phoenix. Earl Watson.
Earl Watson, yeah.
Man, that man was tough.
Earl Watson solid.
What was your least favorite city or stadium to play in?
The Coliseum. Did you ever played it? No, you got to play at the Coliseum, right?
The Coliseum. I would say Utah.
Wow.
Yeah, Utah. I mean, not because I actually like the city of Utah. I just could never play well there for some reason.
Okay. So, like you mentioned earlier, you do produce music. What was the favorite song of yours that you personally released?
Called Good Weather Music. It was me, Pimp C, Bomb B, and rest in peace to Pimp C, and Static Major, who also passed since then. So, you know, UGK was one of my all-time favorite groups growing up as a kid. So I always wanted to do a record with them. Static Major was a good friend of mine. So I actually got the track. And the track is so legendary because it was a kid out of Minneapolis that I heard about as a producer, went to his apartment. His dad ended up being a chaplain for the Timberwolves. I went to his apartment, heard some of his tracks, signed him to his first deal. And now he has like 8 or 9 Grammys. He produced I Love Myself by Kendrick Lamar.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was his actual first big record, was my record that he produced with me, Bomb B, Pimp C, and Static Major on it. So it's like, you know, it's one of them records that's like real dear to me because it's like some legendary people on it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Damn, that's dope, Tia.
Yeah.
What would you say your favorite movie is?
My favorite movie, I'm gonna go with Training Day.
Guys, I've seen that one.
Yeah. I'm going with Training Day.
You've been slipping on your movies.
I know.
Yeah, you've been slipping, Jay. Hey, T-Hud, you gotta give him a movie to watch.
Give him a recommendation. Give him a recommendation.
Life.
We gave him that one. You ain't see Life yet?
Nah.
No, he ain't seen
That's what I'm
Life.
saying.
Harlem Nights.
So one of you guys said that one too. That was on one of your lists. Or maybe Ricky Davis said that one.
And you still haven't seen it?
No, I'm slacking.
Oh man.
All right, adding that to the list. Yeah, the only ones I think the only one I've watched so far was the one Craig said.
The Wood.
The Wood, yeah.
He watched The Wood.
Stacy. All right. Favorite current player.
Steph Curry.
Favorite all-time player.
Man, that's tough because for years it was Magic into Steph Curry.
Oh, okay. So I think that probably just answered my next question. But at the time of recording, the series is tied 1-1. Who is winning the NBA Finals?
I think it's going 7 games, and Game 7 is in Golden State. I just can't see them losing at home.
I hope Boston takes it in 6. All right.
I'm still mad at Boston for beating Milwaukee.
It happens. Who do you think
that was weeks ago?
That was a couple of series ago. Who would you say the best player under around 25 years old is?
Best player around 25 years old?
Under that.
Under 25.
Who's the future of the league in your eyes?
Goodness. Woo.
That's a tough one.
Under 25. Who is the future of the league?
Oh, it's 2 on my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 2 on my mind too, because that Tatum under 25, right?
Yep.
Of course.
Tatum, but I like Anthony Edwards.
Okay.
Ooh.
I like Anthony Edwards because I think Minnesota is doing some things.
Yeah.
And that boy is not even, he don't even know how dangerous he is yet.
Yeah.
He shoots a lot of fadeaway threes. Once he realized can't nobody stop him from touching the top of the backboard. Like special.
Yeah.
He a killer. He's a killer.
He definitely a dog, an underdog at that.
All right. What is something you wish fans knew or understood better?
How hard it is to play in the NBA. Because now I'm a fan, and so I'm in the seats, and some of the stuff I be hearing these fans say, I'm like, dude, are you serious? Like, he's a bum. He's a scrub. I could make. I know. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I love hearing when people be like, "Oh, I could beat that guy one-on-one." It's like, no, you couldn't.
Right.
They
can't beat me right now.
All right, that's gonna do it for Give a Dog a Bone.
All right, let's check it. I wanna just dive into something a little bit. I got a section called Mike's Mental Minute. And I want to kind of get your take on seeing where the G League is today to where they got the Ignite team, where they got like high school players making like $500,000 to play in the league, NBA scouts and the farm leagues that the NBA is having with the G League and everything like that, just seeing where that is today compared to those early CBA days that you were talking about with, just the struggle, like how you was basically the innovator for what the league is today. Can you kind of like tap into that just a little bit of that mental and just the process and the growth of just basketball in the whole and just how it's changed from then in those early stages to practically almost 25 years out?
I think it's great because, like I said, guys like us, when we were in those minor leagues, I probably made, when I was in the CBA, when I first got there, I made, I think, $650 a week before taxes. And then, and then like $20, $25 a day for per diem. We stayed in like motels in cold Midwestern cities. And for you to see now the guys are making, some making $500,000. You got them building the high school league, the Ignite and all those leagues and stuff up. I think it's good for American basketball as well because you start seeing the European.
Speak on that. Yeah,
they started taking over because we wasn't getting the development And it was so tough on us too, because you'll get some guys that be like, you know what, man, I can't do this no more. Like, it'll take the love of the game from you, and you won't keep going. So now I think there's more opportunities for guys, because there's more pros in the game of basketball than only in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? There are other pros that have, if they were given an opportunity that some have in the NBA, they can take some of their spots. But you only have so many spots. So for years, I think it was I won't say unfair, but it wasn't cool because there was only one show in town. And it was the NBA. And that's why like stuff like the Big Three is important as well. You giving people opportunities to play pro at different levels, earn a living, and it's only gonna get bigger and better, and it's gonna grow the game of basketball more. You know, I mean, I can't wait till there's a competitive league to the NBA. Like I said, there's more than how many players in the NBA? 300 and what?
I think it's about 450. Okay,
450. There's another 450 guys that
right
can
here
play in the league.
Right here in the States.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they can play in the league. So I think these different opportunities and the growth of it, I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see the growth in the game. I'm happy to see that people are starting to make, more money. Like, you get a lot of guys, you get a lot of old heads that are mad because these kids are making more money. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey, bro, just be happy that you paved the way. You know what I'm saying? Do I think I should have made more money?
Of course.
Yeah, but it wasn't my time. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's always gonna be generations that's gonna be looking at the next generation. Like, this generation gonna be looking at the next generation when cats getting a $1 billion contract. They're gonna be like, you know what I'm saying? So like, no, I mean, it's fine, and we should be happy with how the game is growing. You know what I'm saying? Because a worker is worth their pay. You know what I'm saying? So whatever you are able to make, that's what you should make. So, I mean, I like it. I mean, I look forward to, seeing these guys, excel and strive and, become like LeBron becoming a billionaire. Like, that's big. He's the first guy to be playing to become a billionaire. That's groundbreaking. Like, that's never been done. Yeah. So that means more and more are going to be doing that. And I think the more of those guys that can do that, the more that other things can, take off as well.
T-Hud, what's your funniest NBA moment?
My funniest NBA moment. I don't know if this is so funny, but I remember one time we in Toronto. This is the year we went to when we played the Lakers. We lost to them in the first round, but we were on like a 13-game win streak. And we went to Toronto, and you know how Toronto is, right? So we get to Toronto, we got a 12 o'clock game the next morning, and so we had already said we on the road. They had lost like 13 straight. We had won like 13 straight. So we like, you know what? We ain't going nowhere tonight. Let's just go down to the hotel lobby, have a few drinks, and go back to the room and get ready for tomorrow. So we do that. Next thing you know, we end up at the club. Next thing you know, Anthony Peeler bought 2 cases of Moet. So now it's 12. Each one of us got a bottle of Moet in our back pocket. Next thing you know, we get back into the hotel room about 7 in the morning. Next thing you know, we get on the bus to go to the game. We stuck it up at halftime. Flip. Flip ain't a rah-rah coach. He come in, turn the whole table of Gatorade over. You guys are drunk. This is the most unprofessional effort that I've ever seen in my life. He snatches the stat sheet from Whitman. Snatches it. Look, KG, you're leading the damn NBA in rebounds. You don't have 1 rebound at halftime. KG didn't have a rebound at halftime. I had about 8 turnovers. And so to this day, when all of us get together, we laugh at that moment. We like, man, that was unprofessional. And we were tripping.
Did you take a nap?
No, everybody.
Oh, so y'all did an MJ. This is real, like, MJ.
And the only person on our team that didn't go out that night, and he the one that's usually on the other end, was Rod Strickland. he balled out that game too. He was like, "Son, why y'all didn't tell me you was going out, son?" And he was the only one that went with us that night.
Oh man,
that's crazy.
That's a good story.
Yeah,
that's a good story.
That's just like what Sed told us a couple weeks ago with MJ, how they like went out before like a finals game and just stayed up all night.
Yeah, he said the game was at 4 p.m. Phoenix time. They stayed up. He said he left at 4.
Yeah,
and he said Michael Jordan went to golf at 7. So he stayed up, golfed at 7, and then got on the bus at like 12 or 1 or something like that.
He probably still had 50 though.
Yeah, they said. That's what he said.
Yeah.
That was this man.
I mean, I heard AI used to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Crazy. I can't imagine doing that.
Nah, I gotta get my sleep.
Yeah. All right, we'll end off the episode as we do each week. We want to know, what is the biggest lesson you have learned throughout your entire journey?
Biggest lesson I learned throughout my entire journey is to enjoy the journey. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I should have because you're always worrying about, the next game, the next play, your next opportunity, rather than just living in the moment and just, having fun. If I could do it all over again, I would do that. If I could do it all over again, I have a bunch of memorabilia from teammates and opponents and stuff like that. Back in our days, we just didn't do that type of stuff. I don't think we enjoyed the game as much as the kids enjoyed it.
The kids, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like they out there enjoying it so much. Yeah. Like we was just all business. And you want to be business, but then sometimes you got to have a little fun. And I don't think I had as much fun as I should. So, I mean, that would be the biggest lesson is just enjoy it.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's
16 episodes in, 16 different answers for that question. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And number 16 right here, T.
Yeah.
It works. Awesome. That's going to do it for episode 16 of the Underdogs Podcast. As always, Jordan Daly, Mike Taylor, Craig Smith, Troy Hudson hopping on with us. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. Make sure you hit subscribe down below. We'll see you guys next week.
Subscribe.
Peace.